Today, we're learning new details about the Tennessee shooting that took the lives of 5 U.S. service members last week. A report released Wednesday says it took Mohammed Yusuf Abdulaziz 3 to 5 minutes to walk through a gate with his rented car and to shoot his way into the Navy Marine Reserve Center. A service member inside the building saw the 24-year-old shooter approaching and fired at him with his personal weapon. At the same time, Marines were running from room to room trying to get their fellow service members to safety. The incident sent shockwaves of outrage across the country, many asking why service members are prohibited from carrying firearms at military recruitment centers. Now, private citizens across the country are taking up the task of guarding military recruiting centers.
This is ridiculous. We trust them with weapons of mass destruction to go defend our country, but when they come home, they can't even have a sidearm. That makes absolutely no sense.
Now is Virginia State Senator Dick Black, who is calling on Virginia's governor to arm the military in the wake of the Chattanooga shooting. Senator Black, thank you so much for being here.
Very pleased to be with you.
A question many Americans are asking: why aren't soldiers who are working at recruitment centers allowed to be armed?
You know, it's an amazing thing. This goes back to the days of Bill Clinton, when you recall he came into office. And the Clintons had a reputation for having a loathing of the military. He issued very strict orders that said there would be no loaded firearms on our military installations. And as a consequence, the armed forces have now turned into the disarmed forces.
So why are you calling for the National Guard to step in and protect our service members?
Well, what's happening now is, you know, the war on terror, while the federal government seems to have lost its focus, it is a very real thing. We are under incessant attack. Of course, it started 9/11 with 3,000 Americans being killed by Al-Qaeda. Now we have this terrible incident in Chattanooga where we had attacks on 2 installations, one on the Marine Recruiting Center, and then one on another installation. We had 4 Marines killed. We had a sailor killed, and unfortunately, on the Marine Recruiting Center, there is a prominent decal that says "No guns allowed." There are bullet holes all through the window, so obviously the decal did not deter the jihadists who decided to attack the Marines.
We've seen action in at least a half dozen states. Why hasn't the governor of Virginia taken action yet, you think?
You know, I wrote to the governor day before yesterday, and I also spoke with the chief of staff to the governor, and I urged him. I said, look, there is no excuse for telling our troops that if you're attacked by an enemy, you're to run and hide. That's not what Americans do. But Governor McAuliffe is very close to the Clintons. The Clintons are very intensely anti-gun and anti-military. They have a long history of this. And so he is trying to pave the way in Virginia for Hillary Clinton's ascendancy to the presidency. He's not going to do anything that's going to be out of alignment with her policies.
Senator Black, we're seeing more civilians taking on the role of protecting our service members. Do you think that's a good idea?
You know, I'm all in favor of it, but it's somewhat like hiring people to protect our police from criminals. We have police whose purpose is to protect us from criminals. We have military people whose purpose is to protect us and our nation from terrorists like Al-Qaeda and ISIS, who are increasingly targeting people. You know, I have personally been targeted by ISIS. They came out in their worldwide propaganda magazine and they singled out 3 American figures as enemies of ISIS. One was Rick Santorum, who's a presidential candidate. One was the head of the CIA mission in Afghanistan. And the third was me. And part of it is because I have talked at length about what I believe is their strategy in the Middle East, of toppling Syria in order to establish an Islamic caliphate. And so we've actually got Americans in this country being targeted. They published a list of 30 military families with their names, their addresses, their family members, and they're really calling on people who follow the most radical strand of Islam to go out and to kill. And I think we've got to become a harder people. We've got to return to, get away from the days of Barney Frank and move to the days of John Wayne, where Americans didn't run and hide. Americans stood and fought to the death.
We've got less than 20 seconds, but real quick, what are your colleagues saying?
I think most people, both my colleagues and the people at large, think that it makes good sense to have soldiers armed.
All right.
Honestly, people are absolutely dismayed to discover that we have people in our armed forces who are prohibited from carrying arms.
All right, Senator Black, thank you so much for your time. Much appreciated.
It's great to be with you.